Guys, if you're still into MicroStrategy and the Bitcoin, MicroStrategy now it's down 15%. It's a fallen knife. Yesterday was down, I believe, 2. So pretty much this thing over the past 5 sessions, it went from over 500 to 343 and fallen. Now this thing might fall 50-60% in a few hours. So if you guys are still into this trash, I would lock in the profits, MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, and never look back at this again. Also, I was listening to a podcast here that was made recently.
December 2020, you bought 50 million. February 2021, you bought $1 billion. November 11, 2024, last week 2 billion, and then today 4.6 billion.
Yeah, so 6.6 billion since we had our quarterly results. So, I think it's like 41, 42 times we bought Bitcoin. In that range. So ever since August of 2020, we keep buying. We don't sell. It's a very simple strategy. Bitcoin is Manhattan in cyberspace. I just want to keep buying Manhattan in cyberspace. I have this theory that
Yeah, but this says who? Because I could have said the same thing about the NFTs or the virtual real estate in the metaverse and the NFTs and are not going anywhere. So says who?
One day, 8 billion people want to put their money in Manhattan in cyberspace. And of course, the more we bought, the more transparent we are, the more the capital markets get behind us. So now, if you're an investor...
And this is what you think, that the capital market is going to come after you, or is going to come with you. But it doesn't seem like it when a share price is going from 520 to 320 in 5 days. I don't see how the capital markets are going to be with you.
Sir, on Wall Street, and you're looking for the company that's going to buy up cyberspace, then you're buying MicroStrategy stock. And some people like Bitcoin, so they buy Bitcoin. Every day of my life I tell people to buy Bitcoin. Some people want more.
And what is he supposed to say? Not buy Bitcoin, or to sell your Bitcoin if that's how he makes money? What is he supposed to tell you?
More Bitcoin, right? The joke I have is the only thing better than Bitcoin is more Bitcoin. So we borrowed $4.2 billion.
What a charlatan! I hope he's gonna get locked up real soon.
At 82 basis points, so we bought Bitcoin with it. So for the people that like Bitcoin, they buy it, but people that really like it want to borrow a lot of money and buy more. And then there's another group of investors, the convertible bond investors, and how do you buy Bitcoin at the all-time high and get the upside but don't have the downside? So you buy the bonds, and it turns out that our bonds have outperformed Bitcoin, but they're bonds. And so that blows people's minds that we can actually sell you a bond. They don't just outperform all the other bonds. Some of these bonds they're trading 200 plus against 100 basis. So they're up 100%. So they outperform all the bonds, but they also outperform the Bitcoin. And that's because we've created a public company with a tiered capital structure, and we've got a lot of permanent capital. Then we've got the senior bonds and the...
But what happened is that you're only going to get that premium if the stock price is gonna reach a threshold, okay? If not, you're gonna get your money, but you're not gonna make any money off of it.
The capital structure, and then the equity, generates a BTC yield, and so a lot of Bitcoin maxis pile into the equity, and that gives us a premium, and we're able to use the premium from the equity in order to create very accretive capital markets transactions with the bonds and the rest of the equity.
Now the question is, like, when you went from,
Yeah, and what is it gonna happen when the Bitcoin crashes to 50 and then to 30 and then to 20 and people are gonna sell by the bulk and it crashes to $5,000? What is it the MicroStrategy stock price is gonna be then? $10?
41 to 30 to $20, and the market's reacting to you. Michael Saylor was wrong. He made a mistake. Look what's going to happen to all his investors' money. Biggest mistake. He's going to get a margin call. He's about to lose it all, right? Did you ever get a margin call? Did that ever happen?
No.
Nothing. Were you
No.
ever close to a margin call?
No.
Not even close?
No.
Why?
The Bitcoin is gonna crash to 10 grand, 5 grand. Sure, he's gonna get the margin call. If not, they're gonna take his company and they're gonna lock him up. Okay, he hasn't got the margin call because the loan he's saying is not recursive, but there is no debt in the universe that goes unpaid.
I weren't too close to a margin call.
Well, we just weren't. I mean, like most of our debt is convertible debt. It's not margin call. I mean, you can't call it. It's unsecured, no recourse. We have very healthy options. We have an $80 billion open interest in our options market. That's extreme. Like the options market in our stock is 20x bigger than the options market in BITO, which is the only Bitcoin ETF that had options. So sometimes people want to use those for leverage. And then the last point is, you can't borrow against those ETFs, but if you had $1 million of Apple stock, you could borrow against it. It's SOFR plus 100 basis points. If you have $1 million of MicroStrategy stock, you can borrow against it. If you have $1 million worth of IBIT or a BTC, you can't.
What percentage of MicroStrategy stock is in Bitcoin? Is it 100%, or what's the percentage of it?
Well, all of
Not the technology. I know the technology, but of the investments you guys make, what percentage is Bitcoin?
We have $30 billion of Bitcoin, and we have $60 million of cash.
I got it. I got it. So 99%.
More than 99 point something.
Sure, that makes sense.
All of our liquid assets are Bitcoin. We're a very pure play, and we don't diversify, and we don't hedge. Sometimes people say, well, why don't you diversify or why don't you hedge? And the answer is because everybody that buys our stock doesn't want us to hedge. The people that short my stock, they want me to be long. The people that are long want me to be long Bitcoin. You can diversify using our stock. If you want to be 5% exposed to Bitcoin, you can either buy 5%, you can put 5%, if you had $100 million and you wanted 5% Bitcoin, you could buy $5 million of IBIT, or you could buy less. You could buy $2 or $3 million of MicroStrategy because we're like 2x Bitcoin. So, and if you want to be 98% something else, that's your decision.
I wonder who shorted you guys. I'm looking at Carisdale Capital, a hedge fund that has shorted MicroStrategy, right? Who else? Anybody else that's known that shorted you guys that was against you?
Well, first of all, I think there's like 35 or 40 billion dollars of put interest, short interest.
Citron, it was in the news that Citron shorted them and they already made 20% on their money.
There's in the options market, a lot, and there's probably $10 billion of short equity. But they fall into two categories. Some people don't like crypto or they don't like Bitcoin. Actually, so that's one reason. They might short it because they don't like the asset class and they just short it naked. Another group of people might be macro traders and maybe they're shorting it to hedge another bullish play or because they think there's going to be a negative macro event and Bitcoin is a macro asset. So if you want to take a negative short macro play, like when there's a missile scare, the Iran-Israeli missile crisis, and people think there's going to be war in the Middle East, Bitcoin trades down. And so if you on Saturday night or something, or if you think something like that, you might want to take a short macro view. And because you can't short Bitcoin with leverage, but you can short MicroStrategy with these options. Right. So if you wanted just a macro handle, you might do it. And then the third class are these arbitrageurs that think that they want to short MicroStrategy and go long Bitcoin because they're going to bet that the premium we trade against is going to compress, and that was the Carisdale trade. You could buy less. You could buy $55 million thing.
Let me ask this question. So right now, your what's MicroStrategy worth today? What's the number? 74 billion, whatever the number was, right? Can you look up MicroStrategy market cap? I'm just curious. Okay, $73 billion today. If you're saying 0.1% today, it's going to go to 7%. That's 700x, right? So if it's 90,000 today, if I do 13 million divided by 90,000,
Well,
You're expecting to 144x MicroStrategy in 21 years. If I do 144
Yeah, pretty much he's trolling. Huh?
times 73 billion, you're estimating to be a $10.5 trillion company in 21 years. Is that correct? Give or take.
yeah, I guess with that math, yeah. But
Yeah, what he doesn't know is that past results are no guarantee for future performances. That's the number one thing of investment. So just because the Bitcoin was up and up and up the past 4 years, it doesn't mean anything. I can give you countless examples of stocks that went up and penny stocks and commodities and currencies, and they all went busted.
Bitcoin goes from 90,000 to 13 million, so multiply 13 divided by 90,000, it gets you to a big number.
You were given a
But Elon's forecasting 30 trillion, so we're still chasing after the robots that just sell flying cars.
So the 30 trillion he's forecasting is what? That's not Bitcoin. That's just what he's forecasting
Oh, for Tesla.
for Tesla.
For Tesla.
And that's what he's saying he's going to be at in 21 years.
That's what I heard. And I think he's going to go faster. I don't think he said 21 years. Mine is a long-range forecast. I don't know what time frame.
How's your relationship with them, with Elon?
We all love Elon.
Okay. So, but you're
Now there was a time when Elon was accepting Bitcoin to pay for a Tesla car, and then the whole deal went away when Bitcoin crashed. Also, there was a time where he was accepting Dogecoin to buy apparel, and that deal went away. And basically, Elon Musk made a bet on Bitcoin, and he lost. He lost, I believe, over $1 billion. I don't remember exactly what level he bought. Possibly he bought about the 50,000-60,000 level, Elon, for Tesla, and he sold them at a possibly 20-30% loss. I don't think Elon Musk is gonna look at Bitcoin. He's gonna look back at Bitcoin again.
you're also a super cycle competitor as well. I don't think you're a guy that's sitting on the sidelines just wanting to be. You're also very competitive.
Companies in the S&P are all going to hold Bitcoin. And so, like, if MicroStrategy gets in the S&P and Tesla owns Bitcoin and other companies, if Microsoft starts buying Bitcoin, pretty soon the performance of Bitcoin is going to goose up, is going to improve the performance of the S&P, and then Bitcoin's going to
Yeah, but again, he's making an assumption that it's nowhere. Okay, he's saying, okay, it could be that S&P 500 companies put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but he made a statement without having any evidence of this.
converge. Bitcoin's always going to be more volatile because it's 24/7, 365, and it's
That doesn't make it volatile. The mere fact that Bitcoin is 365, 24/7, it doesn't make it volatile. Because I can make Pfizer stock, okay, 365, 24/7, and it's not gonna be volatile. I can take a Verizon stock. Bitcoin is volatile because it's a speculative asset, which very soon is gonna reveal to be just a huge scam. It is a scam hidden by technology, but it's a fairy tale, and the people who bought into that fairy tale deserve to lose everything.
it's always going to be higher performance because it doesn't have the risk factors of property or companies and the like.
I think this is what you showed, right? You were showing this.
Yeah, that's the
presentation,
chart,
right?
and
bonds, gold in the last 4 years, 6%, real estate 10, S&P 15.
That's a very useful chart. You can pretty much understand the world if you focus on that, which is if you capitalize on bonds, you're minus 5%. That's why
Yeah, but again, past results are no guarantee of future performances.
all the banks are struggling, and that's why operating companies can't accumulate capital.
This guy goes through life like a little kid, like a little kid. The first time looking at a stock price, oh, did you see that? It went up. Did you see that? Buy more of that.
Because what that's telling you is that if you're using bonds as capital, it's toxic. It's sucking 5% of your life out of you. And look at the cost of capital, 15%. So here, if you use bonds,
the cost of capital is now 15%. The mere fact that the S&P 500 goes up on average 10, 11, 12, 15%, whatever that number is, annualized on average. Like there is a saying that goes like, never forget of that 6-foot man that drowned crossing a 5-foot on average river.
You're minus 20% versus the S&P. That means that it's an awful, way to build shareholder value. If I asked you, do you want to hold $100 billion of cash in bonds and you're Apple or Microsoft, the answer is no, because it's minus 20%. You might as well just give it back to the shareholders. They put it in the SP index. But now look at the other side, right? Bitcoin is 4x that. So if I said you could put $100 billion into bonds or $100 billion into the S&P or $100 billion into Bitcoin, which of the three charts do you want? It's pretty obvious. You take the 60%.
But look, you are talking about a Bitcoin asset class. I don't even know how to call it. First he calls it digital gold, then he calls it digital money, then he calls it a digital asset. He doesn't even know what it is, and you're talking about something that might lose 50, 60, 70% in a few hours. Might not even be around. He's making those plans for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years and might not even be around. It might just be a bad memory.
So what MicroStrategy did is we capitalized on Bitcoin, which is 60%, and then we levered it up with cheap convertible debt and equity raises, and we got to 120%. And that's how we ran 30x. That's why we outperformed NVIDIA, like we're 2 or 3x NVIDIA over this time period, because we're actually capitalized. Now, coming back to the idea of growth, look, the big idea here is there's $450 trillion of money invested in bonds, invested in real estate, invested in equity by wealthy individuals, families, and institutions, and it's just for a long-term store of value. People that are wealthy just want to stay wealthy. People just want to keep their money. So they're buying these store of value assets from the...
How is a Bitcoin a store of value? It's only been around... It was invented, I guess, in 2009. It's been trading like the way we know it since 2014, 15. How is that a store of value? It doesn't have any history to tell you that's a store of value. A store of value, I believe, is something that we got 200-300 years of history. That if somebody put his money 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, he's preserved that capital. We don't have that. This is just a Ponzi scheme that anyone that's going to buy Bitcoin now, it's going to lose his shirt. It doesn't matter at what level you buy Bitcoin, you're going to lose it. Because if you bought at 99, you already lost. And now what is the re-entry point? When are you going to buy back in? When it hits 80? When it hits 70? How do you know? See, it's not like a piece of real estate that you can rent out, and if the price of real estate was to go way down, your cap rate goes up. So it's attractive to real estate investors. Okay, I can make the same examples as a high dividend stock. Let's say that a high dividend stock price falls 50-60% in a market crash. Now that dividend yield is gonna go skyrocket. Okay, so that's appealing to the stock investor, the dividend stock investor. But Bitcoin, there is no ultimate user. You don't know you lose money and you want to buy Bitcoin back and you want to buy more of it, but you don't know what entry point makes sense. And whatever entry point, you're going to end up losing.
20th century. And those store of value assets, they kind of bleed 3% energy because of famine and hurricane and war and inflation and competition and obsolescence and accident and torts and unions and fill in the blank with all the things that cause.
And Bitcoin doesn't have accidents and all that, because there are a lot of people, Bitcoin millionaires, that got killed, a lot of wallets getting wiped out, used to buy drugs, used to buy things on the dark web. The hackers are gonna get into your wallet and your exchange, and Bitcoin does not have that. You see, only people who don't know, they're gonna buy into what it's saying. I recommend you guys to do all your due diligence before you buy Bitcoin based on what he's saying.
Cause your investment not to work. That's 3% of 450 trillion. That's like 10 to 15 trillion dollars of entropy, of chaos every year. So the big idea is Bitcoin is just here. The money is just running from the 20.
And Bitcoin, it doesn't have entropy. With all the waste of energy to pollute the environment and only to mine a Bitcoin, what a waste of energy and equipment and man hours. To accomplish what? To mine a coin that is the most non-productive thing in the universe.
20th century to the 21st century. It's moving from physical space to cyberspace. It's moving from the finance space to the digital economy, the analog to the digital. What we're saying is sometimes the most lucrative thing you can do is do nothing.
From the analog to the digital. Money is already digital. We don't need the Bitcoin, because I do everything off of my phone, off of my credit card, debit card. I don't need the Bitcoin. I can send money with Zelle across the planet, and he gets the money in an instant and free of charge. So I don't understand why he's making those claims, you know. And if I have Bitcoin and I gotta buy anything with Bitcoin, I still have to change it in US dollars, euros, and I still have to pay capital gains taxes on it. So I'm imagining you buying Bitcoin with your hard-earned money in the US dollars, that you already pay taxes on it. Then you bought Bitcoin, it went up, now you need the money. You want to buy you a car or a house, and you're going to have to pay taxes on that profit. So you're going to pretty much end up paying taxes twice. It's only a double taxation instrument.
Nothing. That is to say, I'll give you an example. You have $1 billion, you're in Africa, and I tell you, you can go and invest in anything in Africa. You got to hold it for 30 years. I'll give you 1,000 guys to analyze everything. Or you can buy $1 billion of Bitcoin. And you're like, well, $1 billion of Bitcoin is doing nothing. I'm like, yeah, you're keeping the $1 billion forever and you're doing nothing. The $1 billion invested in Africa is I'm taking Egyptian risk, I'm taking Zambia, Central Africa risk, I'm taking Nigeria risk.
And with the Bitcoin, I'm not taking a risk. I'm not taking a risk that my wallet is gonna be hacked. I'm not taking a risk that the Coinbase or whatever exchange you use is going to be hacked. I don't trust any of those companies. Okay?
I'm taking risk on that ranch. So most of the time people have to take risks and then they got to worry about it. Bitcoin is risk stripped away from the capital. And
says who? He's saying that because it's in his interest to say those things. But says who? This is nearly 2025. I don't think the human beings, they still believe into those fairy tales.
And inflation stripped away from the capital. So when I evaluate any investment, my view is, okay, well, is it going to give me a risk-free 29% ARR? By the way, coming back to that, it's like 60% ARR collapsing down to like 20% over 21 years, and the average works out to 29%. And the assumption is the dollar supply keeps growing at 7, 8, 9%, and then you get an additional gain because we invent robots and AI and flying cars, and so the actual S&P index is growing because the U.S. prints more dollars. But it's also growing because we invent obscenely cool, useful things like the iPhone or like an electric car. So the future is good, but at the end of the day, Bitcoin's future is just pure digital capital. And I look at it as, why don't I just keep buying something going up 29%? All I got to do is borrow the money or raise the money at a cost of capital less than 29%. Over 21 years, and it makes sense for us because we're a pure play, right? People want us to do that. I mean, the people that are short, they want us to be pure play. The people that are long want us to.
That makes sense. It's a very honest relationship both ways. The guys that want you to fail, they want you to think long term because they want you to fail long term. So you're patient about it. So they're going to make money off you. But the guys that are also pro you, they also want you to be long term. That you're patient with it, and I get that part.
Yeah.
I guess the question, the part that you explained, which was very simple, was this is something anybody can do. It's duplicatable. I'm not sharing anything with you that's complicated. Rob, can you go to that one slide that he shared about Manhattan, which I think is the best one? If you can go to the one with Manhattan where you're breaking down the different ones that, yeah, that's right there. Yeah, this is the one. 1626 Manhattan. Can you zoom in a little bit, Rob, so I can see it? What was it, 60 guilders?
What I'm saying is, if you have a chance to buy
So first, he's saying the Bitcoin is the best thing in the universe that doesn't have entropy, and now he's comparing it with a piece of land or a piece of real estate or a real property. It doesn't make any sense. And again, this analogy, I don't know where it comes from. Because I could have said the same thing about Tesla stock or Amazon stock. I could have bought Tesla at the IPO. I could have bought Nvidia at the IPO, and I would have made 40, 50, 60, 100, 200 times my investment and more. So first he's saying do not buy anything else but Bitcoin, and now he's making this example. All of these analogies, he's a smart guy, but they don't make any sense. There is a missing link how those analogies relate to Bitcoin. Because I could have said that to anything. I can start a pyramid scheme tomorrow and saying get in early. But it doesn't have any substance to it.
Manhattan for 60 guilders in 1626, you should buy it. But what I would say, which is deeper, is you could buy Manhattan real estate every decade for 300 years and always pay more than the previous guy paid, and it would still be a good idea. And that's because it's the greatest city in North America.
Yeah, but it's also because you can rent it out. Okay, you can do a lot of things. You can borrow against it. You can sell it. You can do a leasing option. You can do a seller financing with real estate. You can collect rents and make money, make a monthly cash flow and raise those rents. Bitcoin doesn't have anything of that. It doesn't create anything. It doesn't create any cash flow. It's just a huge non-productive waste of energy.
Okay. Everybody wants to do business there. There's a limited amount of land. It's a perfect rock, limited amount of land. So there's never a bad time to buy Manhattan.
But even if you look at this, though, Louisiana, we bought it for $15 million. APR 6.3, payoff 12 trillion. California 1848 for $18 million, 7.78 trillion. Alaska for $7.2 million in 1867. It's $1 trillion, 7.8. You're saying Bitcoin's going to be 240 trillion in 21 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just very easily, the way you say it. It's not a big...
Man, if you are still watching this, I don't know what to say now, you know. He's just a little kid going through life in the body of an elderly person, but he's just a little kid. I mean, if you really follow his suggestion, man, I feel for you, brother.
Big deal to you.
I mean, look, the takeaway from that slide is the key to getting rich is by scarce, desirable property. Pay for it with fiat. I mean, how much is a guilder worth today? Like, pay for it with money you printed.
Yeah.
Borrow the money. But, we borrowed the money to pay for Alaska. I mean, the country was broke in 1867. We just fought the Civil War. But what did we do? This guy Seward had the vision to print a $7.2 million check, pay off the Russians. And so, number one thing, buy the property. Number two thing, hold it for a long time. Right? I mean, because it might not feel like much, but when you're compounding over 100 years or 200 years, and so what do all those four have in common? Well, they're all something you would want to hold for more than 100 years. And so what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the next frontier. We've already gone as far west as we can go. Now we have to go to cyberspace. I mean, eventually we'll go to outer space, but, we're waiting for upgrades in propulsion to go to Mars and the asteroids. But between now and then, you go to cyberspace, and the real point is Chinese billionaires, Russian billionaires, African billionaires, South American billionaires, every company on the planet would rather have their money in the U.S., but they can't get it to the U.S. So where else can I put it? I can put it into the city of Bitcoin. I buy Bitcoin, I sell Africa, I sell Venezuela, I sell Russia, I sell Siberia, I sell China, I buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is digital capital. Everybody wants it. Everybody knows about it. No one can steal it.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say here. No one can steal it from you. Go say that to all of those people who got their wallets hacked, and go say that to all of those people who logged into their exchange and they got wiped out. And what is it? What is it now? What is it now, MicroStrategy? It's losing nearly 14% in a day. I mean, thanks God that this was going to be money preservation. I don't know how you guys sleep at night. I mean, I don't know how you Bitcoiners sleep at night knowing that when you get up the following morning, you can be wiped out. I mean, I admire you guys. But
from you, and what's the use case? Well, the use case is to get rich or stay rich, which is like half of everything, right? The great irony is people can't figure out what it's good for. It's like for the last 10,000 years, people have been trying to figure out how to get money and keep it. What it's good for is the wealth that allows you to power your family, your country, your company.
Yeah, I saw in an article where you were suggesting Apple should buy $100 billion of Bitcoin. You said, Bill Gates, call me if you want to make the next trillion, meaning buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then when I saw a number that just recently came out, is that Berkshire Hathaway, if I'm not mistaken, they're sitting on $325 billion of cash. $325 billion of cash where they're sitting at.
what it is Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. Okay, those guys don't believe in Bitcoin. But the thing is that even if they put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and even if they put like a billion, 10 billion worth with the Bitcoin, to them is nothing. Okay, he keeps saying Fidelity and BlackRock and those companies, they put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but it's, I mean, I don't buy Bitcoin because BlackRock bought Bitcoin, because what am I gonna do then when it comes out the news that the past quarter BlackRock sold this Bitcoin? You're not gonna get that news when the quarter is ended, and what are you gonna do then? BlackRock has made a profit. Now you got the news, the Bitcoin has plummeted, and now what are you gonna do? Are you gonna sell your Bitcoin at a loss? But even if BlackRock puts Bitcoin on the balance sheet, that's a really small percentage of the money that BlackRock has got under management. It doesn't mean anything. It's like $10 to you and me. It's nothing to BlackRock. it seems a big number when I say, oh, BlackRock put $1 billion, put a 10 billion on the Bitcoin, but to them it's not even 0.001% of their assets under management.
If you, right there, yeah, $325 billion of cash, are any of these guys in communication with you? Have you spoken to Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Tim Cook, any of them?
Well, I mean, I speak to anybody about this in confidence, but that I never disclose what I say or that I spoke to them. But I do speak to a lot of mega billionaires and public companies about it. And I make a few points on this. One, that 320 billion, that is destroying $32 billion a year. They are destroying $3 billion a month in capital because they're generating a 3% after-tax yield at best, and the cost of capital is 15%. So take 12% negative real yield on that. That is the cost, multiply 325 billion times 12%. That's what the shareholders are paying right now for that. The second point I make is, if you look at Microsoft, for example, 98.5% of the equity value of Microsoft is based on forward expectations of quarterly earnings. And 1.5% of the value of Microsoft is based upon tangible liquid assets. And another way to say it is Microsoft is 144 times levered to their quarterly earnings. If they earn $3 billion a quarter or X billion, whatever the number is a quarter, more than that, I guess, but you multiply it by 144x, right? And if they miss by $1 billion, it's 144 billion where you move. And the reason why operating companies are like that is because the SEC 33 Act and the SEC 40 Act required that operating companies hold no more than 40% of their liquid assets in securities. So normally they'd use treasury bills. And treasury bills, as we just showed on that chart, are toxic.
And Bitcoin is not toxic. Now Bitcoin is down here. Now it's gonna come crush it down like you've never seen before. This thing is really down 4%. It's down over the past 5 days, pretty much 10%. I mean, it was close to, it was 99 and now it's 91. Now, if you were to get in at 98, 99, now you already have a 10% loss. What are you gonna do with it? Are you gonna take a loss? Are you gonna keep your fingers crossed? What are you gonna do? Okay, you're gonna sell it at a loss and you're waiting for a good re-entry point. And what is it? 80, 70, 60? What is the entry point? There is no bottom to this thing.
It's toxic capital. It's poison. You might as well just inject poison into your veins, right? You're bleeding 10% of your capital a year. So they don't keep the capital. And Bitcoin is a major revolution because starting in 2025, you can account for Bitcoin on fair value basis, which means that Bitcoin is just as good as treasury bills. And it's a commodity, so you can have 100% of your balance sheet in Bitcoin. And what that means is Microsoft, if they just stopped dividending out their cash flow and stopped buying back their stock and they convert it to a Bitcoin buy, and you crank in like a conservative, like a 21% assumption, like half their cash flow in Bitcoin, you make $1 trillion over 10 years. You know, you put all your cash into Bitcoin, you make $2 to $4 trillion for the shareholders, right?
If Berkshire did that.
No, if Microsoft did it. If Berkshire did it, they would make more, right? I mean, they've got if they flipped that, you know, put $300 billion into Bitcoin and grow 21%, you're generating $60 billion a year of investment income.
Michael, how much do you cold call? Like meaning, how much do clients call you versus you call them? Are you also
people contact me?
Okay.
Like I'm not out there. Like I'm not out there trying to get in the doors to pitch this. I just do it as a public service. I mean, my day job is I focus on MicroStrategy and our capital markets activity, and you know we're going to do an equity or a debt.
He is focused on MicroStrategy. His core business is not worth a damn. his software is losing money. You look at MicroStrategy balance sheet, they lost last year. I think they lost $1.5 billion. They're diluting the shareholders. They miss earnings estimates. His core business is not worth a damn, and he's saying that he spends his days working on the MicroStrategy software. It's a scam. That's all it is. That's what he does all day. He scams people.
Debt raise or something. And then my copious free time, I advocate and educate on Bitcoin. And then as a result of that, I've got 3.7 million followers, so I get a lot of people,
The difference, because there is that, and then there is the conversation where, if there's a relationship for somebody to be in someone's ear. For example, Musk is in there, they're doing things together, right? So what is that organization that they build is called Doge, right? Department of Governmental Efficiency, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, right? So how did that come about? Well, it's probably because Musk is in Trump's ear, and Trump is always looking for smart people around him that give an idea.
Then the stock rallied, generated a lot more cash from stock option issuance. We bought another $50 million of Bitcoin, and pretty soon we're off to the races.
But also talking about Trump and Elon Musk, okay, but Trump is not gonna do anything with the Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, he made a speech at the Bitcoin 2024 conference only to get those votes. He's not gonna do anything on the Bitcoin because why he didn't do it 4 years ago? People who never bought Bitcoin, who are not interested in Bitcoin, and they were Republican, they still voted for Trump. And people who do buy Bitcoin, who do like Bitcoin, pretty much he's got their votes by making that speech at Bitcoin 2024, but he's not really going to do anything with the Bitcoin. That was the whole, it was only a strategy for Trump to get those votes. Man, if you don't see that, I don't know. You seem like a smart guy.
And all of our investors were on the board. They wanted to be invested in a company on a Bitcoin strategy more than they wanted to be invested in a company that was going to continue with a conventional low growth approach.
Let me ask you, how big of a victory was when you talk about the red wave when Trump won? And how different would the climate be today? Bitcoin right now is at what, 90, 91,000, 92,000, 89,000, whatever the number is. How 90,000, 711, how different would it have been if it was a Kamala victory?
I think if you look at the difference between a red wave and a blue wave, I'll take the blue wave first. If it had been a blue wave, Bitcoin would grind up plus 20, 25%, 30% against resistance, and the rest of the digital assets industry would degrade down 20%.
Okay.
Like every digital exchanges, digital tokens, digital securities, digital currencies, they would degrade and Bitcoin would grind up. And there would be that tension that you see right now for the last 4 years, where Bitcoin is grudgingly accepted, under protest, and the other ones are being attacked all the time. But I think the red wave was the headwind becomes a tailwind. Bitcoin surges up, not plus 20, but maybe plus 50 or plus 60. I think we go from that to this. And then the digital assets industry goes from degrading down to surging up. It goes from minus 20 to now it's coming back. Now there's a little bit more uncertainty with digital assets because we've got to wait till next year to figure out what the framework will be. But basically the polarity got switched from interesting ETFs, MSTU and MSTX. Okay, I think MSTU went from like nothing to $2 billion in AUM in 3 weeks. And MSTX last I checked out $1 billion. So imagine an ETF that siphons up $2 to $3 billion of capital in like a few weeks, no marketing. And what they offer you is 2x MicroStrategy exposure. So when I think about it, I'm like, well, if MSTR is 1.5x Bitcoin, then those things are 3x Bitcoin. And then the other bonds are like 75% of Bitcoin. What we're really doing is we're refining this crude capital. I use the analogy of Standard Oil or refinery. You put crude oil in one side of the refinery, and out comes kerosene, gasoline, and asphalt. And of course, you put kerosene in the jet engine, but you don't put crude oil in. And so, what people want is they want refined petrochemical products. Or you could think of us as a transformer. I want high voltage power, and I also want low voltage power for my daughter's hairdryer. And you're like, well, you're losing if I put low voltage in a battery and I put it in my little kid's toy, it's very inefficient. There's a massive markup in it. But the point is the family wants batteries for the kids' toys. They don't want to electrocute Junior, right? So what we're doing is providing low voltage Bitcoin, high voltage Bitcoin, and the only way to do that is to have a 100% Bitcoin balance sheet. Because I have to have the 30 billion of Bitcoin to sell you the $3 billion of bonds that are 10x over collateralized that also give you the return of Bitcoin and the frequency of Bitcoin. Half of this is the return, but the other half is the volatility. The reason those instruments have value is because they're volatile, because I can arbitrage them and sell the volatility. So a lot of times people think volatility is a bad thing, but I would say it's like radioactivity and heat. And a lot of people are afraid of a fire and they're afraid of radioactivity, but you can't have nuclear power without radioactivity, and you can't have an internal combustion engine without a fire. And so MicroStrategy's put this crypto reactor in the middle of the company.
Yeah, but volatility is a good thing for the traders, and it's a good thing, yeah, but it's only a good thing up until the stock goes to zero. Because I can give you countless examples of volatile stocks that went to zero. I mean, long-term capital management, Lehman Brothers. I thought that was very volatile in the end. I mean, BlackBerry. Where are they now? It doesn't make any sense what he's saying. Yeah, the volatility is good, but when you lose 70, 80, 90%, what is the good re-entry point? I mean, how do you know? You're gambling. Buying Bitcoin, it's just like a gamble. Now, he's saying that it's not like a casino, but I think the Bitcoin, it is the largest and the most manipulated casino.
And because we have that high volatility, high energy reactor, and it's like, people are like, aren't you going to diversify it? That's like taking this water and pouring it on the fire. Of course I'm not going to diversify it. Like, I give you fire, you're freezing to death, and the first thing you could think to do is throw water.
But we're not freezing of anything. I mean, this guy is full of it. He's only telling you a story. He's putting it out there and to see who's buying into this fairy tale.
Right? So we're actually running the reactor, and that is really our unique value proposition to all those investors, and they can't get it.
So pretty much he's saying that Bitcoin is fire. We are in a very, very cold weather, and the Bitcoin is fire. So how did we do it so far without the Bitcoin?
And except from a public company that's 100% committed to Bitcoin.
Let me ask, there's rumors going on that the CEO of XRP met with Trump, right? Ripple. I think there's a rumor, Rob, if you want to pull it up, if there's something like that. I thought I saw something. Did Ripple CEO meet with Trump? Critics remark fuel XRP surge and speculation. CEO Brad Garlinghouse remarks amid XRP surge and have fuel speculation, Trump stock. So if Musk is in there, Musk, my view, I may be wrong. Musk is meme coins, Musk is Doge, Musk is...
Met Satoshi in Seattle in 1993. He also came to you in a dream. You have a nice relationship with Satoshi.
I feel like I do.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a story to tell. Definitely had an opportunity to meet him back in 1993.
You mentioned...
Now look at Michael Saylor's facial expression when he said that he met Satoshi.
Now, what happened previous to that? What happened after that? Is he saying 1993? Is he confusing Satoshi with Michael Jordan? Who in 1993 Seattle? Is he thinking George Carlin as Satoshi? Sean Kemp? 93 during the playoff. Who is he talking about here?
Look, I like Scotty, and he came over to my house, and we had a nice dinner on my yacht, and we talked all about Bitcoin, and it was awesome, and I have the greatest respect for him. I think that the interviewer kind of asked him an unfair question, and I was a little bit uncomfortable because us Bitcoin maximalists, we are very protective of Satoshi, and we don't we don't like. We don't talk about Satoshi other than with reverence. So,
But you don't talk about Satoshi because it's a made-up name. It doesn't exist. There is no information on this guy. There is no historicity. This guy in 2011 sent his last email and disappeared. This is not a legit person. It's a criminal organization. Okay. Under the name of Satoshi.
So, I don't know. I don't have much more to say on that other than, we know Satoshi came onto the world scene Halloween 2008, and we like to have all of our commentary starting Halloween white paper 2008 onward. Otherwise, I think it's constructive that Scottie Pippen, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, has a relationship with Satoshi and talks about Satoshi, and it's endemic of the fact that Satoshi is the bringer of fire, Prometheus. He brought us sound money, and I think that's awesome. But otherwise,
did you guys speak backstage where you're like,
how is it that he brought us sound money if it's not even money? It's not used anywhere. I've recently been to El Salvador. I talked to a lot of people. I interviewed them, and nobody uses the Bitcoin. There might be a couple of food trucks that take the Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador. I talked to a lot of people, and they use the US dollar.
Otherwise, I'm not talking to you about my relationship with Satoshi. Satoshi is reverend.
To him.
Satoshi is a scam. That's why he's saying that.
That is what you're saying. Or you're saying to you as reverend.
I think Satoshi is very special. But
did you guys have a follow-up like you and
Oh yeah, he came to my house that evening, and we had a great time, a great discussion.
Did you ask him like, what do you mean you met him? Did he share anything with you or no? Like when he met him?
I have no other insight to offer on this subject.
I got it. Well, listen,
what a scam, the whole thing.
The rest of the world was curious when Scotty said that. One, I was concerned about your neck because I thought you cracked your neck when you turned around. I don't know if you saw that or not. It was a very quick movement you made. And then the second part, everybody, you play one more time, Rob. Again, just look at the neck reaction, folks. Not anything else, but watch this. Go ahead.
You mentioned you met Satoshi in Seattle in 1993. You also,
look at his face.
Came to you in a dream.
Twice.
You have a nice relationship with Satoshi.
It is not fair that Michelle asked him the question, and I
Is
felt
that
a
in the
little bit
world? Is
surprised.
that inappropriate to ask the question in the
I-
world?
I-
Why did you get a little bit uncomfortable?
I think it's inappropriate.
Why do you think that?
I think it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate for a big. It's like just inappropriate.
This is a lie after a lie. Oh my gosh, this is just, only that is enough that the whole thing is a huge scam.
Satoshi came onto the scene in 2008 Halloween with the white paper, asking anybody about their relationship with Satoshi before that date is an unfair, inappropriate question.
It's almost as if it's.
It was awkward, but that's all I have to say. I'm a big fan of Scotty. He's greatest ever. I'm a big fan of Satoshi. I would rather not
Well, maybe I'll say
be in
my
an
thoughts.
awkward situation.
I'll say it, and you don't have to say anything. I get the feeling like, is there an element of looking at Satoshi as God, as Jesus, in that space? Like, do some people look at him that way? Where it's not just this mysterious, anonymous inventor of Bitcoin, or is it like,
And again, they think that Satoshi is like a god. Now, the whole thing is a cult. The whole thing about Bitcoin, and that's why it went to 99, 98, 95,000 is because all of those people who bought into the fairy tale, they're stubborn, and it's like a religion. Okay, it's like when I talk to the most religious people, they are the most stubborn. Okay, and there is no way to change their mind. But see, only one can be right. Like if you put in a room, you put a Christian, a Jew, and a Muslim, and they get to talk, everyone in that room thinks that they're right. Okay, that's the only true. Their true is the only true. But see, there are three, so only one can be right. In the reality, no one is right.
Almost like worshipped type of a character.
Satoshi is a spiritual figure in the Bitcoin community. Satoshi is equivalent to Prometheus. Prometheus gave us fire. Satoshi gave us money. Bitcoin is the first perfect money in the history of the human race. I spend my copious free time reading economic history, and I've read thousands of years of economic history and tens of thousands of pages, and it's one chaotic, disaster train wreck of we used seashells, we used bales of tobacco, we used silver and gold, and we clipped the coins, and we had bimetallism and it crashed, and we had fiat currency, and we had a debt crisis, and no one ever had a money that was not defective. I mean, I can show you examples of monetary crashes every 30 years for the past 3,000 years in every single culture. And Satoshi comes along for the first time and says, oh yeah, here's money, it's not broken. And it's so profound.
But if it was money, why is it not being used as money? I don't think that paying someone with Bitcoin is any faster, any cheaper, any better, any less polluted than paying someone with the MasterCard.
It's like, you look at this water, you sit down at a table and the poor person thinks, oh, I got to drink water. And the rich person wants to drink $1,000 bottle of champagne or wine or something. But for 100,000 years, humans didn't have clean water. Right? If you read the history of civilization, people are dying in their 30s and 40s and 20s because the water is dirty, because they're getting infected. If you were Henry VIII, you didn't have clean water. The reason they all had gout is they had to drink wine with alcohol in it, and they ended up with degradation of their limbs because they didn't have clean water. So we only have clean water, clean air, clean food that doesn't kill us. We only have it for the past 100 years. We had dirty money from 3 million BC all the way up to January 3rd, 2009. We have dirty money, and there's one guy that actually finally gives us clean money, non-toxic, it does not kill us. So is it spiritual? Yeah, it's spiritual. It's like, what happens when I inject poison and toxic into the veins of my kids? They're dying. It's like forcible chemo.
What does it have anything to do with this? Injecting poison into the veins of your kid with Bitcoin. It's an analogy that he pulls out of his ass. It's got no substance, it's got no reason this to be a good analogy.
Chemotherapy to a 12-year-old athlete, that's the problem. All these companies have a useful life expectancy of 10 to 15 years. You know why? Because the capital is toxic. Because the money that they capitalize on is toxic. It's sucking the life out of them. Satoshi comes along and
it can be toxic, fiat currency, I'm not arguing that, but Bitcoin is just as toxic.
It gives you non-toxic money. And who else did it before him? Nobody. So they attack nuclear power, they attack electricity. You think, you just must hate humanity. And when you attack Bitcoin, you're attacking digital energy, right? And you must just hate humanity.
So where are you going with this? Are you going to Gary Gensler?
What digital energy? The only energy Bitcoin is a wasted of polluted energy. That's all it is. It's a waste of energy to create something which is unproductive.
Is that what you're going to, individuals that are getting in the way? Is that like when you said, if you think, like, who do you think you are to
Visa and MasterCard and NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange and DTC and custodians, you've got the systems that work from the 20th century. And if you're wanting to protect those systems, I understand why, because you're worried about burning $100 trillion to the ground. And then you've got things you can do that are new, like I can move the money 1,000,000 times a second for a thousandth of a penny, and what if I want 8 billion AIs to move it 1 billion times a second through 10 billion computers? And that scares some people, but that's the future. And so I would say there's, I give everybody a benefit of the doubt. Some people are just not progressive because they want to protect the past. Some people just don't understand the promise of the future. But there are some authoritarians that just generally don't want you to have freedom.
I mean, I remember this clip here with Trump, right, at the Bitcoin conference when he made that comment. And Rob, if you want to play this clip.
On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman.
He did it twice.
I didn't know he was that unpopular.
Why is he so unpopular amongst specifically this community?
You know, I think what you've got is a struggle between the 20th century and the 21st century. And I think Gensler's view is the rules we have and the laws we have are adequate and they're good enough, and you should conform to them. And I think the crypto community and the Bitcoin community think, why can't I do everything 1,000,000 times smarter, faster, stronger from my iPhone on Saturday night? Why can't I? I want to do new things. Why can't 10 million influencers, like if you're 10,000 influencers, you got 1 million followers, why can't all 10,000 of them issue their own token and have their own access to the capital markets? And why do I got to actually take 4 years and $40 million to do it if it's only worth $4 million to me? So there's this, the tension, and the two sides have talked past each other. If Gensler had put forth a digital assets framework, and he had said, okay, look, here's how you ethically issue a token. Here's how you ethically issue a security. Here's how you ethically prove you're a commodity. Here's how you ethically prove that you're a currency. And by the way, don't lie, cheat, and steal. If he had done that and given people a route to register, I think 95% of the industry would have come into compliance, because no one in the industry is standing up arguing we want to lie, cheat, and steal. But in fact, there was no framework, there was no process to do it, and on the other hand, I think the industry wasn't able to generate the support through Congress or the Senate, and I think the administration wasn't very constructive. So I would say there's been a non-constructive dialogue. The people in the crypto industry, their position has been, well, you know, you don't respect us, so we don't respect you, right? And the entire relationship broke down to kind of mutual yelling back and forth. But the right question for the crypto industry to ask is, why is it unethical for Katy Perry to issue Katy Perry token to 1 million people if she has no intention of lying, cheating, and stealing? Why is that unethical? Why can't Joe Rogan, raise capital from the general public in an honest way, cheaper? Why does he have to spend infinite money to do it? And then why can't I trade Apple stock on an iPhone on Saturday? What's unethical about that? And if I take you at face value, the SEC says just register. But if I did register, it's illegal to trade on Saturday. And so the point is, MicroStrategy's registered. You can't trade MicroStrategy stock on Sunday. Binance once listed our stock on the Binance exchange. The German regulators made them shut it down, right? And so what we really need is we need to elevate the conversation to constructive, cheerful, progressive. How are we actually going to make things 1 million times cheaper, faster, better, more efficient? And the dialogue.
Well, guys, I'm getting tired of listening to this charlatan. Also, there was I don't remember exactly the timeline when he said to put everything into the Bitcoin, to borrow against your credit card, mortgage your house, and put everything into the Bitcoin. Guys, I hope that you guys know better than that. Again, if you're into Bitcoin or MicroStrategy, lock in your profit and never look back at this charlatan again.